actually, peace is probably the only thing that can make us whole, isn't it? So this is where I do this, right? You guys are so organized here. I am impressed. What a delight to be with you all today. I just am so thankful, and thanks to Reverend Larry and Premdaya, who've kind of got me ensnared here today. Yeah, so this will be fun. I come from the Sufi perspective. A couple of you were asking me about that. Sufism is often thought of as the mystical side of Islam. And as I was saying earlier, though, it really goes way back before that, through the ancient Greeks to much earlier understandings about there's only one being we all share, and it expresses as this. And that's all there is. So, sorting ourselves out in that context is quite a journey, isn't it? And coming to Sangha like this, what you guys have, it's such a jewel to have a community that's centered around realization, and truth, outside of any dogmas or things we have to swallow in order to understand. It shouldn't be like that. So today I'd like to talk about the ego, or the separate self, and its roots in the human psyche, and what we can do to maybe see this more clearly happening in ourselves. It's kind of an odd thing to talk about because it doesn't actually exist. The ego, or the separate self, is an assumed limitation on the unlimited, on the only self there is, aware being, which all of us share. That's why every authentic spiritual tradition talks about effacement of the ego, or the illusory self, as a central tenet. The first shall be last, and the last first, and so on. But, even when we genuinely understand a teaching like that and try to follow it, we can still get caught. And it can seem very hard to do that. Why is this, and what is the remedy we need? That's what I'd like to talk about. So, each of us says I hundreds of times a day, don't we? And the real you is in there, for sure. Your real I refers to that portion of infinite awareness that has borne your name for your entire life. Sufis call it the Ruh, or spirit. That I is real, and it's your true identity. But it exists outside of time and space, and is not a thing or a noun. It's no object that can be found by the mind. It's the infinite, timeless, pure knowing of your experience. Nonetheless, most of us do not know or see that I clearly, or remember it. That's because it's become mixed with thoughts, emotions, memories, images, which are woven together into the idea that there is a someone living inside your head, separate from everyone and everything else, right? That wrinkle in our pure awareness is laden with agendas and strategies, emotions and conditioning that hold it into place. So that's the separate self we imagine ourselves to be. When that self is functioning on steroids, we call it narcissism. Narcissism is defined as a personality trait that's characterized by an exaggerated sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, a lack of empathy for others, and so on. And spiritually, it's really just a compensation for the seeming absence of the authentic self. The narcissist remembers the real self as if an echo of it, of peace, happiness, and intimacy, but goes searching for it through a separate self in activities that are subtle, gross, and destructive. So to open this up a little more, here's a Sufi story that my Murshid used to often tell. So Moses is walking up the mountain to talk to God, and he passes the home of the local rabbi who's sitting on his porch, and he's got his ceremonial garb on, and his long white beard is combed and perfectly in place. And he calls out to Moses, "Moses, when you talk to God, ask him if he has something to tell me." And Moses is like, doesn't even respond, just keeps going. And so, with jokes like this happens several times, okay? Okay, and then the fourth time, Moses is walking by, the rabbi calls out, "Moses, does God have anything to tell me?" Moses turns around and says, "As a matter of fact, yes. God said to tell you that you're always thinking about your beard." And the rabbi jumps up and goes into a rage and starts tearing his clothes and swearing and pulling his beard out by the roots. And God looks down to Moses and says, "You see, he's still thinking about his beard." Yeah, ain't that how it is? So, over the centuries, the Sufis have made quite a study of the illusory self and the structure of narcissism in the human being. And there are different systems, but the most common denotes 7 layers of maqam, M-A-Q-A-M, or stations of the ego. And a maqam is like a spiritual set point, an indicator of how caught in the illusion of a separate self one may be. So I'll give you a little flavor of this. The nafs amara is the greedy, voracious, commanding self. It's like the lowest of the low. Everything and everyone is an object to be corrupted or consumed in the ego's desire to fill up this inner hole in their sense of self. So it's pure lust for money, fame, sex, and so on. And this, is a very dense layer. And then the next sort of layer up, we have the nafs lawama, the blaming self, which is consumed with criticizing, comparing, self-reproach. Whether it's critical of self or others, this level of the ego is blinded in the heart, and unable to take responsibility, okay? So coming up a little higher is the nafs mohina, the inspired self, which is starting to sound a little better, isn't it? Reflects a little more balance in the heart, enabling the person to receive some inner and outer guidance. But there can still be impressions there that lead us astray. So I won't enumerate all these levels, but you get the idea. And when you get to the 7th level, the nafs safiya, the complete self, this signifies a pure soul, purified of identification with the impressions that create separation, the sense of separation. And this self can experience the ecstasy of being alive and be of real service to others. So, we all have some of these levels of maqam functioning in us all the time. the maqam is really an indicator of how much we have let go of in life and how much we also hang on. Simply put, it's how much we are still thinking about our beard. So, and along the way, we might even experience what the Sufis call a hal, H-A-L, which is a temporary spiritual state of freedom and joy that can just appear after a walk in the woods or a meditation. These are grace experiences. And the non-dual teacher, Rupert Spira, calls them free samples from God of a higher maqam, So it kind of keeps us, it's like the carrot and the stick, it keeps us on the path. So, where do all these impressions come from that kind of keep us caught in this separate self? Well, for Sufis, in Sufi psychology, there are two main areas. One is the family whole, and the other is the argument with God. The family whole refers to the tear or wounding in the fabric of our sense of self that we may carry from our family of origin, that comes from a lack of intimacy or not being seen, being neglected, or abused. And, depending upon the impression, the Sufi student is given practices to challenge and uproot that narcissistic wound and see that it's really just the face of God hiding in a certain way within themselves. The other one, the argument with God, has to do with feeling so beaten down by life that we feel abandoned by the divine. And we may therefore have a huge chip on the shoulder around that. Ironically, the remedy for the argument with God is actually receiving the love of God. So that can be quite a leap for someone in that situation. So what can we do to raise our maqam, get to a higher level? In short, nothing at all. Because it's set by divine law and things that we can't see functioning in ourselves, because we're so absorbed with how we are now and how we got to where we are now. And ironically, a higher maqam comes by becoming nothing at all. As Meister Eckhart said, I found my quote here. Since it is God's nature not to be identical with anything other than itself, we must come to the state of being nothing in order to be one with God's nature. Okay? So, spiritual traditions teach various practices and meditations that may lead us to the experience of becoming nothing, but actually realizing that we're already nothing. We're already nothing at all. So as an intermediary step, though, we can take the stance of just softening our being and coming into more of a place of surrender in looking at this. I'd like to suggest a practice that can bypass the filter of our habits, assumptions, and biases in looking at ourselves. And the practice is just noticing. Just noticing is a main practice in the therapist Rick Carson's book, Taming Your Gremlin, which is a humorous, playful approach to what he calls getting out of your own way. So, the separate self, or the nafs, wants to ensnare you in all kinds of activities to get rid of it. It's like the story of Br'er Rabbit and the Tar Baby. You start throwing punches at your ego, trying to get rid of it, you're going to get hopelessly mired in that. So better to just notice. Don't look directly. Just notice it with your peripheral vision. Noticing is very powerful because we see in an instant, all at once, the whole picture. Let's just take a moment right here and just notice your experience right now. Take a quick look at the level of thought, feeling, sensation. You catch anything you were missing a moment ago? A great deal can be communicated and known in a glance. In just noticing, we suddenly see with no judgment, no filter, no agenda, no point of view, no time, no space. Just noticing happens at the level of awareness that could be described as being aware of being aware. What is it that is aware of awareness itself? Why awareness is aware. Awareness recognizes experience and instantly reveals everything directly to be known about it. So when we drop the filter of a personal self, in that instant of just noticing, choiceless, pure awareness is activated. That knowing takes place outside of space and time. Just noticing has the perfume of nothing, no time, and no one. There's no one who notices. There's just noticing. When you start to play with this amazing faculty of your real self, you may see that just noticing supersedes and undermines the thinking and perceiving mind that we normally attribute to someone living in your head. That activity becomes more of what is just noticed. So, thus, just noticing can be a revelation. Revelation comes from the Latin revelare, meaning to lay bare, to lay bare. When our raw experience is laid bare in the clear light of awareness, we're learning. The mind is evolving. The body is letting go. We may actually be getting in line for another free sample from God. My Sufi teacher used to say, we have to lie down in front of the door we want to go through. That portal to God is your sense of I am. We pass from the world of time and space into being. God's being through the I am. We come back to the activity of being a person through that same door of I am. If you heard the term dervish, it comes from the Arabic word for door, the one who passes through the door from the everyday world of 3D phenomena to the domain of unity or being. So how can this play out? I just want to give you a little example. Let's assume for the moment that I'm angry. Okay, I'm really steamed up about something. If I just notice that clearly, what's present in my direct experience? First of all, there's pure awareness, the field in which this is happening. I may feel one or more sensations. There may be a sense of heat. My breathing may be kind of constricted. maybe even some shaking. But is there someone who is angry? I can't find it. The just noticing doesn't include an angry person or somebody. In fact, just noticing starts to pull the plug on the seeming reality of a separate self who is angry. It's seen to be a kind of mask or defensive activity or an excuse, an echo from the past. So, to begin to sum this up then, our maqam is really a barometer of how much we've shed, how much we've let go of. And this is what all the traditions describe as surrender, letting go, or the via negativa, taking the backward step. This is where we begin. Don't try to engage or discipline your ego or gremlin. That's just what it wants, lots of attention. Instead, just see it, just notice it. Keep noticing and realize that you're really just the knowing of that. Just the knowing of it. That's the beginning of a journey of transformation. Just noticing can actually become a meditation that is what you are rather than something you do. Do make fun of your gremlin. Draw it, poke fun at it, make jokes about it, give it a goofy name, own the absurdity of it. That de-escalates its importance. And narcissism absolutely hates being made fun of. Ultimately, just noticing lays bare our experience and is another name for being aware of being aware. That's the ruh, or spirit of the Sufis. And here's a bit from a great Sufi, Hazrat Inayat Khan, about that ruh, or real self. The soul has no birth, no death, no beginning, no end. Sin cannot touch it, nor can virtue exalt it. Wisdom cannot open it up, nor can ignorance darken it. It has been always, and always it will be. This is the very being of the human, and all else is its cover, like a globe on the light. The soul's unfoldment comes from its own power, which ends in its breaking through the ties of the lower planes. It is free by nature and looks for freedom during its captivity. All the holy beings of the world have become so by freeing the soul, its freedom being the only object there is in life. So just noticing lays bare the reality of the soul, pure awareness. Taking our stance as aware knowing is the pathless path. We're discovering our true identity as aware presence or spirit. As the poet Rumi says, I see so deeply within myself, not needing my eyes, I can see everything clearly. Why would I want to bother my eyes again, now that I see the world through his eyes? Thank you. So this is maybe a time to reflect a little bit on this. One question I could put to you is, in the exercise we did there, where you were just noticing, did you catch something you didn't see before, something that you had missed? Did you pick up on something there? Do you have a comment or a comment about any of this? Yes?
I was wondering, as I was noticing my environment, who's the observer? And then I was starting to think about there's an observer in me that is watching me watch out here and hearing what you were saying. I was trying to connect that a little bit because sometimes I forget when I get angry or upset or caught up in something and I'm rushing. And I hear a voice, but it might be my parent's voice, it might be my own voice. You brought that up for me when you were saying about being aware.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? It can be like a hall of mirrors. You know, well, let's see, who is it that is aware? And that is, you know, the great inquiry that Ramana Maharshi gave his students. It's often said that Sufism is 2 parts bhakti, 1 part jnana. Well, the bhakti is, you know, dancing and practices and things we do to open the heart and be of loving service. And the inquiry is exactly that. The jnana is, who is the knower? Who is the knowing, really, of my experience? We're so conditioned to focus on objects, emotions, sensations, objects, 3D reality. We overlook the most intimate faculty we have, which is I am. It's I that knows. That's you. But we've allowed that I to become mixed with ideas and all sorts of other things, that trauma, pain, that obscure it. And you know, sort of the message today is you have to include that sense of aware presence to see clearly. It's like the movie and the screen. You know, the movie is everything we're focused on. It's made possible by the screen, which is awareness. Another hand I saw go up. Yeah.
I was intrigued by the idea that when you're just noticing you're stepping out of time,
Mm-hmm.
and that just really rings true for me, because when you get out of that ego dance, listening to the ego, you know, where are you? You're with God, and God is eternal, and God is infinite. So just taking that time to break the dance, break that rhythm, and observe, that's helpful.
Exactly. And you may find that it's thought that creates time, and where thought is in abeyance, you won't find any time there. Literally. The knowing that you are right now is exactly the same knowing as when you were 5 years old. If you look in the mirror when you were 5 years old, use your heart and consider, is there a whit difference between the knowing you had then and now? Many, many things have changed. The body's different for sure. The world looks very different. Isn't the knowing the same? And that is what we're pointing to, that I, that's the real you. It's eternal. It's outside of time. It's completely unaffected by time. When you start to get this, you take your watch off. You don't need it except to get somewhere. Good questions. Any others? I see a hand.
So how do you get yourself out of the way?
Yeah. Well, our minds want answers to questions like that, don't we? And because mind wants to focus on an object. But here we're talking about taking the backward step, falling back into the observer. There's no technique for that. It's a kind of remembrance. And so shedding that which is, you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings, you're not your sensations, you're not your sense experience, you're not your body. So that's a process of subtraction that can happen in meditation. But you just look past those things and fall back into the self, which is in being. To the mind, that looks empty. But arriving in being is actually experienced as being full of itself, full of all this and the entire universe besides. The difference is, in being, there are no separate persons, no separate objects, no sounds, only hearing, no sights, only seeing, no sensations, only feeling. So it's taking a backward step into something that seems scary, maybe, to the mind. It's our home. The heart says, a hot tub. Yes.
Sure that this is directly related to what you're talking about, but in my mind it seems that it is. I have a photograph that's like a poster. It's probably 2 feet wide and 3 feet high. It's a scene on a beach, and there's a dog on the beach, and there are waves that clearly are cresting, and the sun is setting. There's a cloud that's sort of a band across the sun that hasn't set yet. Mm-hmm. And above the cloud is just a white glow of the sun. And I love looking at this photograph. I sometimes think that's the last thing I'd like to see before I leave this world. And as I look at it, there's a part of me that knows that what's really most important about that photograph is the white light that's right above the cloud. But it's a real challenge to focus my attention there, because my attention wants to go to the cresting waves or the band of cloud. To just, it takes some effort for me just to continue focusing on that white, which is really just the poster board behind the photograph. It's just white, like the white wall here. But there's part of me that knows that that's really where it's at. That's what matters in the photograph.
That is so beautiful. Thank you for that. The poet Shelley, if I can quote this correctly, wrote, "Life, like a dome of many-colored glass, stains the white radiance of eternity." Okay? All this that looks so real and so rich and so intimate and so beautiful is revealed within you. It arises within you in a space of awareness that is the white light of eternity. It's closer than your jugular vein, as the Sufis would say. And so the world arises in you. Isn't that incredible? In the aware being that you are. And that's all there is to the world. But that's a topic for another talk. But yes, you put your finger right on it. That's how to live in the world and not be of it. Because the world is in you. The world is in you. And you are one of the characters in that world. Do we have time for one more? This is so good and juicy, but yeah.
I wonder if the Sufis have a concept, so to speak, of our thoughts, our interpretations, our definitions are in the brain, from the brain, we think. Probably they do as well. And yet, where is, what is, not what is, this light that we're talking about, this me, this thing, this everything that is, it is us, it's beyond us. So what, you understand what my question is?
Yeah, I do. Well, Rumi had an answer to that. Rumi says, "My home is placeless, a trace of the traceless." For the Sufis, and for Muslims as well, all manifest reality is around a point of nothingness. Just like you're within. Yeah, my experience arises within. Where is within? Well, sink back to the source of the I. When you wake first thing in the morning in bed, see where the I thought arises. Ramana Maharshi pointed to the right side of the chest. But even the chest is included in this place of the placeless. Consciousness is the very being of Allah. Allah means the yes, the no, the inner, the outer, all the pairs of opposites. That's what we are. We are all of that and the knowing of it. I would say as a practice, though, to find the source of the I and be the knowing of your experience. Just keep coming back to your pure, unblemished awareness of what is. And then come out of what you are not. All the things I'm caught in from my painful experiences of the past have to be shed in order to become, as Meister Eckhart says, like God. To be recognized by God is to be completely empty.
That it is pure experience, potentially?
Well, experience comes and goes, and if we base our life on, attaining to a state, that state will go. Anything that comes will by definition go. What is it that does not come and go? What is the common factor in every experience? That's what we're interested in. That's what we can get excited about in our spiritual practice, our daily practice. Curiosity, a willingness to let go, to be open. These are the things that help us with our maqam, the things we may be caught in. But that openness is available to all. The same openness that the Buddha or Yeshua, attained. They open the door for us to know it. It's garden variety, everyday awareness. And if you follow it back, you may discover there's nothing to the world but awareness. Wajida Premdaya.
What I've been finding for myself, and he's my Sufi teacher, so I've been chewing on this a little longer than some of you, maybe in this exact way, but my mind just does not get it. Okay, it wants to grasp and make it something and understand it, And I find for me, the falling back is, where do I know this? And I'm finding that I know this in my heart. I know it somehow in me. And so I would just say, I'm in that journey, and that's what helps me when I have questions of like, well, where is that? What is that? Is I go, my brain does not know and will not know that. Only my heart will.
Indeed, and what that brings up for me, a great Sufi mystic of the 13th century, Balyani, said, abandon the intellect and understand by the power of unveiling. Abandon the intellect and understand by the power of unveiling. So what that means is, it's like if you've seen the silhouette of the two vases, but of the vase, but you look at it in a different way, you see two faces, right? This right here, this is God's being. Is already so. And you're in the picture. That's all there is. Same stuff with all the chaos and the wars and climate change. It's eternally what it is. So proceed by unveiling. The mind will not get this stuff. You're already what you're seeking with God's eyes. So, alhamdulillah, as the Sufis say, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Just be what you are. Just be what you are. Maybe we should leave it there. Okay. So now I think we're supposed to do a practice, right? Okay. I'm going to sit for a minute here. I'm going to lead you in a very short practice that is found in the Tantric tradition, also in the Vedas, yoga, and I find this helpful. Maybe you will. So let's just notice how you feel. Feel your whole body at once. And now just bring attention to your breath, exactly as it is. And you can notice the quality of it, is it coarse or smooth? Is it easy to breathe, or does it feel a little difficult? Just check it out. But allow it to be exactly as it is. And really become your breath. Just, put your heart and attention completely on it. So now just allow the out-breath to be a little bit longer in duration than the in-breath. You don't have to count or anything. Just do it in a way that feels like you're accenting the out-breath with a little more duration. And with each exhalation, just let anything that's hanging on or feels unresolved or whatever, just let it drain down your legs and into the earth. as Rumi says, flow down and down in ever widening rings of being. And just keep letting that out-breath, exhalation last a little bit longer. Now at the bottom, at the end of the out-breath, take a short pause before you inhale. And just notice that pause. Now allow the pause to become a little longer. And as you settle down and settle down, see what just hanging out in the pause feels like. See if the pause becomes delicious. We could call this winding down to zero. So when you're ready, just take a nice deep breath. And you can open your eyes.